Okay in baseball. It's the kick. Doesn't happen often, but when it happens,
It's alive?
yeah, it leans against the stake. Yep.
7.
You want the truth or do you want the myth?
Yeah. It seems tougher.
Yep.
Oh. Okay, 2. 1.
Everybody, I've played in games where they give you 2 for a leaner, and all it ends up being is an argument because the old traditionalists are like, "There's no such thing as a leaner. It's 1." The guy could play. Listen to that, Abby. Doesn't it make you want to dance?
Yeah.
Come on, Ab. Hey! This is at the wedding dance. You'd be just spun.
DJ Coulter Agency.
Thanks,
Joel,
DJ.
You and I were the only ones dancing that whole thing.
I was even playing.
Yeah.
You were really.
Liberace's
The
got
air
game.
piano.
He had game.
Oh, he
did.
Sick game.
You know what I didn't like about Liberace was he dressed so boring.
Yeah, right. Very bland.
Come on in here, Bones. We
sounds
miss
good.
you. Okay, everything you do has meaning. Why? Abigail, why?
Oh, because you were talking about horseshoes.
So she drops from America.
A horse with no name.
Yeah.
She doesn't quite know what the
horse's
song.
name is Leaner.
Leaner.
It
Maybe
has a
that'll be
name.
in the next Derby.
It's Leaner.
Leaner.
Yeah.
It's got to run into the side the whole time.
Leaner. He can't turn right. He's just left. Lean.
Just
lean.
go. It's like NASCAR. Drive
Horseshoes
fast,
are
turn
great, aren't they? Everybody. You should have. You
I
have a
love
place at the
horseshoes.
lake. I bet you. Like.
We could put some stakes in there.
I guarantee you, Perry has a horseshoe pit.
I don't think so.
The,
I think I would have seen it.
14-time state champion came from Rutland, North Dakota. Just
Rutland.
so you know, they had a horseshoe club out at Silver Lake.
It's huge.
I'll tell
I
you
know-
about it when we come back.
All right, that
That's
sounds
huge.
good. Throw a pillow. A donut.
That doesn't work on your keister, though, does it?
I was watching
Wait. I know times that people have used those for their keister. Never mind.
What's that?
I was sitting here thinking, I am there now. Yeah.
A little 9-hour shot in front of me here in a couple of hours, and then a nice little 18-hour shot.
Yeah.
So whatever you got.
Exactly.
And I can't find my neck pillow. Pillows.
Abby has a neck pillow.
Where is it?
I do. It's at my house. I just got it for our
I
trip
have
to
one,
DC.
too.
Does Joel have a long segment coming up in News and Views? Can you zip over and grab it?
Grab
and
it?
Zip back and get it to me?
Yeah. Except the second day that I had it, I broke the little button on it.
Button?
Like there's a button in the front of it to make sure that it stays on your neck.
Wow.
Well, it's
a button.
the little
Right.
snap.
Not like a button your grandmother would
No,
sew.
like a snap.
Oh, okay.
Like
Like a
to
snap.
keep the pillow around your head.
Okay.
So then on the way back from DC, Joel and I put a shoelace on it.
To
There-
clasp.
Well,
Why are you
rigged
snapping
it.
it anyway?
Right.
Because I don't want it flying around.
Well, it's not going to fly around. It's just going to rotate with your neck and your
But then
head.
you don't have to hang on to it. I mean, there was
Yeah.
a theory behind it.
There was a theory.
You want bad. Okay, imagine all the seat assignments on all the planes you've been on in your life, right? How would you like to be Abby and find out that your
All
seat
5 for
assignment
me.
is between Madison Quinn
and
and Joel
Joel.
Heitkamp?
And luckily, planes are super roomy now.
So
you know?
Joel's right armpit, Madison's left armpit, and here's
Yep.
abs of steel.
And there's me. And then to top it off, Joel, the way there, we get on the plane about to leave for DC, and Joel's like, "Hey, what shows did you get on your phone for the trip?"
Did you bring a split cable so you both can?
No,
or did you share
wish
it
I
here?
would have. And I was like, "Well, I have a book with. I'll read." And Joel's like, "Oh, okay, good. So then I can use your phone." Yeah.
That worked good.
The way
What was the problem?
That's
the way home, I finally in the airport, I was like, "Joel, you need to get some apps on your phone, and we're gonna download shows so that we can."
Yeah,
And then
So
she
I watched Park and Rec the whole
Parks
way
and
home.
Rec. We were watching the same episodes together on separate phones.
But she timed it.
Yeah.
I mean, she had it all gigged up so that it was like, okay, so we'd hit play at the same time, and then we'd both break out laughing at the same
Right, so
time.
you're watching
and then
that.
everybody else in the plane that didn't have some electronic device shoved in their ear was like, what are they doing up there?
And judging by that flight, God bless everyone on that flight, but probably didn't have a lot. Like
No.
my dad wouldn't be having like The Office downloaded on his
Yeah.
phone.
We had 2 guys behind us, these 2 great guys that were just like all over. They'd lean over the seat and, what are you guys up to?
Joel and I would pause it and then talk to them, and then we'd wait a little bit. Are they done? Can we play it again? Oh, we're gonna keep talking. Okay.
They were great guys.
It was fun.
Rusty, do you have a neck pillow?
I do not. Have you seen the way some people wear their neck pillow in front?
Like
The snapper goes in the back.
interesting.
I've
that-
never seen that.
Is that for like drooling purposes?
Well,
Are they been drinking or what?
Well, so their chin maybe rests on the
mean-
humpier part, the thicker part.
In theory, the back of your head is safe because of the seat.
And
the
I'm
headrest.
a forward leaner. Leaner. Worth
so
one
maybe-
point in horseshoe the leaner, but I'm
I
a
got
forward
caught in
leaner.
an airport because of a storm, and we were caught there for like 18 hours. And so most big airports have chapels, right? And so I grabbed Sue's neck pillow, went there, said a prayer, so I didn't want to feel like I was abusing being in there.
Did you lay down in a
Then
pew?
I used one of the pews because they were cushioned. Me and the Lord got together.
Some would say 3 of us in this room sleep in our own pew often.
But
Notice how I excluded you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
how do you know
At
she
least as
wasn't
far
one
as
of
you
the
know.
3?
As far as you know, I did.
Yeah.
Seriously, go home and get that pillow.
So
It's new. It just is broken
Does
already.
it smell like lilac or
I don't think it probably smells like Veterans Airplane.
perfect?
So you're going into the long bus part
This
of your
is-
life.
The Red
right?
Hawks this season have 18 of their first 21 on the road. So it's a big chunk out of the gate,
Right.
which is good because they'll have a big homestand coming up later. But this is the mammoth one out of the gate.
So what type of cards are played on a trip like this?
I just gave one of our pitchers 2 decks of cards, new ones. I'm not sure. Back in the day,
Are seats facing, do they have seats? Is everything facing forward, or can they have some seats where that you look at somebody.
They bunk, so these seats fold into bunks.
Okay.
So a lot of them just lie prone. So at any given moment, I'll turn around and there'll be like a big toe 6 inches from my face.
But my point is, can you play a card game where all 4 participants are looking at each other?
I got what you mean.
A little table action.
Yeah. And that's back in '96 when we started this. Brian, the late Brian Traxler, who was, you remember Brian? He was a classic guy, portly fella, but could just fall out of bed and hit 310. Just a great hitter, Dodgers organization. But Trax, when we started, Darryl Motley wouldn't play, but Mott would get his spot and put his Walkman on, and or someone.
I know what that is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or someone would bring a VHS movie, and you put it in your big VHS, the big thing recorder. This
Richard Pryor.
This is 1996, mind you. But Traxler would get on, and we wouldn't even be out of the Red Hawks lot. And it was an older bus, just older, but he'd go in the back. We'd pull down this big cardboard. He goes, "Card table's open." And then you just go in and you play cards for
Was it
8
poker?
hours.
Was it?
A lot of it was probably poker.
Okay.
3-2, hold 'em, where you're holding the
Yep.
card and you drop it, or you hold if you want to stay in the hand, or draw. A lot of that stuff for
Okay.
nickels.
Yeah.
Would you trade and let other people play?
Would you what?
Would you trade and let other people play, or just the same 4 people?
A lot of times it's a
It's a monopoly.
It's a standard group of guys on any given
When you're
bus.
out of chips, you're done.
On any given bus. And the funniest,
You have no money. Go away.
those were the days, and you don't see this anymore. But Gino Caruso, who you've had on because Gino's now a bail bondsman, runs Goodfellas Bail Bonds right next to Pawn Star Shop in Las Vegas. Gino was a crafty left-handed pitcher, but Gino's just a different bird, man. If you see his commercials in Las Vegas, like, come on down to Goodfellas if you need a bond. This is
We've had him on. He's
Caruso's
great.
awesome. He'll try. If you're looking for a fugitive, Caruso will find him. That's his job. He's a bounty hunter and he's a bail bondsman. So Gino was our left-handed pitcher, and it was one of those smoking hot days. We were on the bus, and it was easily 100 and change out, and we really didn't have any AC, and it was just liquid. I mean, you are feeling it. And our bus AC went out, and now everybody is just it's miserably sweating. And some of the rookies were trying to rest. Gino takes off his shirt, takes off his sweats, takes off his undergarments, takes off all Gino has on
Is what God gave him.
what do you yes was the suit that God gave you when you were born, and a pair of socks.
He kept
Gino-
us. So that's sanitary.
So
at
Gino's in
least.
the back. Gino's in the back of the bus, and I'm looking up, going, "Hey, Gino's stark naked," but which is not uncommon because guys you're just strange, I'm sure, well, maybe girls are the same. But so Gino's stark naked, and nobody says anything. They're just looking at Gino as he's walking up the middle of the aisle of the charter bus. And again, not a stitch of clothes except his pair of socks, and he walks up to our bus driver, says, "Hey, can you turn the AC on? It's hot." And the bus driver's like, "Oh," and he looks over and he's just got Gino in all his glory right there. So Caruso comes back. "Hey, good-looking fella, put together, a good guy." And he leaves the bus. You have to say that we're all like typical Caruso. And he sits next to another rookie pitcher who's sleeping against the window.
Oh no!
And Gino just sits next to him and kind of nudges him, and the guy wakes up and, Gino, what the? This is what happens on road. That's what used to happen on road trips. We don't see that anymore. That's
All
a lot
right,
of.
keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen.
If you
We'll
have a
be back
naked
with
bus story,
please text in.
us in. Thank you. Yeah.
Text in any thoughts you have on a naked bus story or on the weird. The
Round
weirdest.
and round and.
Never mind. We'll be back with more right after. Director Mike Polovitz, he was a senator I served with, by the way, and I were often partners and won. My deck, good thing too, because I missed the bus at one stop and was missed when it came time to start the game.
That's another thing, and I have faith in the youth of our generation. I like to think I do, but here's what they don't do as much anymore: pinochle.
Yeah,
or like that.
I'm a pinochle guy.
You were just up at Williston State College back in the day, Jack.
That's it.
We played pinochle all the time.
That's what
all the time.
If we sit down, and the only time we won't play pinochle is if we'll play whist every now and then.
Yep.
And whist is a great game too. But if we have like 5 people and the one's like, how come I never get to play? Then we'll play hearts. Play hearts, queen of spades,
and maybe you could do like racehorse pinochle, but I like the 2 versus 2. That's.
Two.
But that's it. I once when I was shocked. Actually, I take that back. When I was voice of You, Mary, for those 6 years, and then you and I had dinner, and I came back here to work. The Mary girls basketball team, and they're now, I suppose, married and children now, but like half of them played pinochle.
Really?
And then women's basketball team, I'm like, wow, credit to your parents for teaching you how to. My daughters tried to learn, and then they gave it a good try.
Yeah.
But they just didn't.
This is how marriage works when it comes to pinochle. And I finally fixed it. Okay, so my partner is usually Heidi's husband, Darwin.
Right.
And then Heidi's partner is usually my sister, Julie, because Julie is the most lucky. She knows how to play the game.
She can, but she's also fortunate.
So lucky.
Oh, look.
I mean, she can bet on a 3-card, know, and she's going to win, right? But they don't always win.
How much table talk goes on at that?
A lot. So anyway, this is typical Heidi, right? She'll lose, and she'll lose a buck or two, and she'll go, Darwin, pay him. Darwin, and I'm like, no. This money is coming out of your pocket. It was never about the money. But I want your money, not your husband's, because he just won.
The argument of pinochle is because if Rusty and I were partners, we're sitting across from each other here in the studio. Abby and Joel are partners. So you open a bid. And the bid opens about 26, I suppose, if you're playing on. If that's
drop
right.
to 25.
And so you either bid or you pass, and that's it. For those who don't know the play. So Rusty says
I'll
pass.
But I'll give Jack some looks.
So if you open at 26 and Abby says 27, and I'll look and I'll say, then I always go pass with tremendous amount of help. And then my sisters will say, quit table talking. You can't say that. No, I'm not table talking.
You do that, we'll scream.
Right?
That is just wrong.
Rusty's dad, who did play-by-play of our high school, where I first learned of Lee Halverson and the great Lee Halverson. But Lee, the broadcaster for the Coyotes of Williston, he would come on our charter buses on the trips. And Gary Knutson, our coach, and Jim Vossler, the late Jim Vossler, a dear friend. We lost Jim years ago. But Lee would always sit in front with the coaches, and they would play pinochle. I mean, religiously.
Yep.
So I would sit in the back of the bus when I was learning to emulate Lee Halverson, thinking maybe I could broadcast because I imitate Lee a little bit. And before he and I really had a good, I was just a player. He was a broadcaster then. I'm probably a sophomore.
He liked you back then. By the way.
He still liked me. Lee would come on, and I would duck below the bus in the back of the char and go, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Halverson. Come on. Looks like Lee's going to play some pinochle here. And he'd just turn around, where is he? Where are you? And I'd sit up in the back, hey, Lee. How you doing? So I think we got to be good friends right after that.
Yeah. So how many times when you're sitting there and the other team is debating whether or not to go for it? Right, because they don't want that double set.
Do you? Do you? My brother's this way. He'll bid just because he wants to bid.
Yep.
Right.
43, 44, 45, 46, and he hadn't even looked at his hand yet. 47, 48, and finally, my sisters were like, seriously, do you even know what you have?
And then how many times does he make it?
Just like 68% tops. But that's probably because I said tremendous help.
Tremendous help.
You guys grew up close to Highway 2.
Oh, sure.
And when I went to UND to school, the rope in UND was 19. Oh, it wasn't 16,
15, but 16, 17 with the two D's.
With the two D's. Yeah. And so that took some getting used to. And then finally I'm sitting there going, Joel, you dork, all you got to do is add 4 to whatever you were going to bid. Right.
But it doesn't feel right? It's not where you learned how to play the game. A rope was 15, 10 for the aces around, 60 queens, 80.
And the old timers, if they heard us saying 15, they'd say, no, it's 1,500.
Oh, that's right.
Remember? They would put the old timers just didn't like cutting those zeros off the end.
Did you guys ever have the power of the tub? Whoever was sitting at the table perpendicular to the tub in the house
Yeah.
had the best luck.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing. It was always like, which way's the tub sitting, and then you'd have to sit that way because that was luck.
If you run a bid up high and you call for spades, do you already assume that you're wanting the double pinochle, or is it because we've had this? We might have to have inside pinochle.
Right.
I think we just
Abby,
did.
we're going to teach you this game. We need a fourth.
Does it sound fun?
Yeah, it does.
That's her. No, it really doesn't. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, the troopers in the house, who, by the way, it's their job to enforce illegal gaming.
What two cards
So my
make a
guys are
marriage?
going to run out of here quick.
What two cards make a marriage? Abby, go.
A queen of hearts and a king of
Well, she's kind of
King of what?
also hearts.
things, but you have no choice. This continues to happen. 10 people dead, more injured. Security guard tries to stop things in Buffalo at a Tops, and what ends up happening? He ends up dead. Now, this is the man with the gun, right? So, I'm going to challenge some of you a little bit later in the show. All of you who say, you know what, the way to stop a man with a gun that's doing bad things is another man with a gun. Well, how did that work, right? It didn't. And so here we sit. We're back to the point where we're talking about something that really, as a country, we need to resolve. And I'm not talking necessarily that the conversation needs to be about just guns, about what guns we own, how we use those guns. Do we need those guns? That isn't my point. My point is what we saw this weekend was hate. That's what we saw. We saw hate. We saw a philosophy that has always been there. It's been underwriting, but there are people throwing fire to it, right? There are people that are just throwing gasoline on that fire and just throw more gasoline on that fire. And it's all for their own personal good that they can do this. And it creates this base of people that they just love, that they get a chance to do that. And so we need to talk about that today. For you folks that are going to see us do a little something else in the beginning, know that we're not going to avoid that. So there's my precursor. Now, it is Trooper Day here, where we allow you to interact with the men and women that represent you out on the highway patrol. The Minnesota State Patrol, Sergeant Jesse Graybo is in the house. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
And Captain Brian Niewind is here as well. How you been?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having us, Joel.
Good. Okay, first question comes from me because this one here is one I thought of when I was driving home from Williston the other day. I got to about Medina, about 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes outside of Jamestown, and it started raining, guys. It rained so hard that here's my question of you. Is it a policy? Is it a rule? Is it something I should have known from my driver's test? When do you know to pull over to the side of the road, or you're just going to cause more trouble by doing that? I'm going to start with you, Captain.
It's probably all based off of feel, all of experience, how comfortable you are driving in the rain. When we talk about the interstate system, and even state highways, we don't want people necessarily pulling off on the shoulder, because if you can't see, other people can't see too, they might strike you. So the best bet is, if you don't feel comfortable, try and find that next exit and get off on an exit. Don't pull off on the shoulder. Don't pull off underneath an overpass, because those
happens all the time.
It does, and that's those are dangerous areas for people to stop, especially in those low visibility type conditions, because people might not be in their lane and they might strike you if you're sitting there.
How about on the Minnesota side?
Same thing, and the other thing is you got those hazard lights. It's probably a good time to use those too.
Yeah, and that day the wind came up, and so I was thinking of the high-profile rigs, the semis, and then you saw cars that were coming up hot on them and then spinning around them, and the problem to me wasn't the semis who were just out there trying to make a living, until the semis decided to pass the cars in front of them, and then they were kicking up enough water so that what it looked like they were doing was basically snow blinding people. And so I'm curious what the policy is there when it comes to truckers.
Well, there's not a lot. When you used the term snow blinding earlier, we say the same thing too with winter. It's one of those things that's difficult. I mean, everybody's got to be aware of the surroundings around you and just make the best decision that you can, I guess. And a lot of that's going to come from experience, but it gets kind of scary, no doubt.
Yeah, some of the accidents you must come upon to report on, though, have to involve something like this, because the reason that this is coming up, number one, is because I drove right through it. Is a miserable stretch of it was worse than driving through a blizzard. I shouldn't have been on it. Number two was there was an accident I saw because of it. And so going to those reports, you must see a lot of this at times like that.
We do see it. I would say it's not the majority of the crashes that happen on a bad rain day or a bad snow day. That's the very, very small minority of the crashes that are happening those days. It's normally people that are driving too fast for the conditions, or they're following somebody too close and they rear-ended somebody, or they're driving too fast for the conditions. They spin out and they go in the ditch. So it's a very small minority of the crashes that we have. And there's so much technology out there nowadays whether it's a winter event or it's a summer event, people should be able to plan ahead. They should be able to look at you can even just look at the North Dakota travel information map. Probably Minnesota's got the same thing. It has the weather radar on there. So if you're driving and you know you're going someplace, you know there's like severe thunderstorm warning going on, take a look at that. It'll show you right on the travel information map, and maybe just pull over and stop and wait for a half hour for it to get by wherever you're going through.
Also, and I'm going to throw this at you guys, everything is so backed up out there in terms of people trying to get in the field, get the crop in, all of things. You know what's going to happen. They're all going to get out at the same time. You're going to get the wide rigs out, and you're going to have mud on the roadways. Are you ready for something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's wet. It's wet wherever you go on the eastern side of the state. Western Minnesota, I'm sure, is the same thing. I flew over last week, the area, and there's a lot of water out there. So if those farmers can get in the fields, there's going to be a lot of mud on the roads when they come back out of those fields. And everybody needs to be aware that there's going to be a lot of large machinery all hours of the day coming up here because they're going to need all 24 hours to get this crop in.
And the truth is, you know what's going to happen. And Sergeant Grable, they don't have much choice. They got to get this crop in.
They got a job to do. And now you're sharing the roadways with fishing traffic. I mean, folks are pulling the boats now. It's getting busy out there.
I never thought of that. This last weekend, how did you fare? I mean, the opener, was there a lot of crashes out in your district, or
there
what?
were a fair amount of crashes, but weather cooperated. So that helped to me. It was a little breezy for folks, I guess, out there trying to fish. I didn't have time, but that was my understanding. So
I got my fishing boat out of storage, right? So I go and I check it out, and I checked air pressure in the and that was it. I didn't check. I got it home, and I only went 5 miles with it. But like you said, most accidents happen close to home. Went and I pulled it in the garage, going to get it cleaned up, and I thought, you didn't even check the strapping on the back. You just pulled it home.
Right.
Mice could have got to it over the winter. You never know.
Yeah. And they better not have, because I put enough mice poison in there, or mice head stuff in there. All right. In terms of just generally speeding, is it gotten worse, or is it about the same, or what do you see, Sergeant Grable?
For us, on our side of the river in Minnesota, it's gotten worse. That's why we've increased our, we call it heat patrols, high intensity or highway enforcement against aggressive traffic, because we're seeing speeds like we've never seen before. I mean, 100 miles an hour on a daily basis on our freeways. And
100 miles an hour?
100 miles an hour.
Wowza. How about North Dakota?
Speeding is the leading cause of crashes in North Dakota. We're seeing an increase of speeding. We have not seen the increase of fatal crashes that Minnesota has because of speeding related offenses out there, but we are seeing people speeding. Again, it's always been the highest crash causation factor in North Dakota, so it's very common what we see every day.
Well, you on the North Dakota side, because I drive that more, but you on the North Dakota side clearly are trying to present an image out there, not so much as to find that one speeder, but just to say, look, we're here. Because when people see you, they slow down.
Yeah, we're out there. If you think about it, in North Dakota, we have 159 troopers that we normally have, right? We're 10 short right now, but only about 110 of them actually work the road every day. We've got other things that we have to do. So I think it's a large state, 110 troopers. We work shift work. So there's not a lot of us out there, but when we're out there, we're being effective. We're educating through enforcement. We're educating through educational efforts, but our troopers are out there being busy every day, and the public's keeping us busy, right? We want to keep our roadways safe. Our goal is to go out there and educate through enforcement.
If you had legislators sitting right next to you, Sergeant Grable, would you tell them to increase speeding fines?
I guess that's their decision.
Yeah, that's a smart answer. Captain Ewan?
I think we've talked about this plenty of times on this program, is we have very, very low fines in North Dakota. Yeah. And, for law enforcement as a whole, even this last session, our agency did support trying to get that fine structure increased. Not necessarily for all violations, but those traffic crash causing violations, the ones that are out there injuring and killing people every year, we'd like to see a higher rate of fine on. People
can communicate so easily now. They can get word out to each other. And I give you a perfect example. I was at a place, and maybe told you guys this before, but I was at a place in Richland County where a guy hauling corn to the ethanol plant came in. He said, "Hey, the county's out and they're weighing you," and word just spread like wildfire. And whatever county deputy that was looking out for the roads that day that brought the portable scales out and weighed that guy got word out to, and I'll bet you it spread times 7, times 7, times 7. And so really by stopping one, he did his job.
Yeah, we know of like Bobcat plant in winter. They've got a Facebook group, so when they see one of us out there, they're texting or they're going through the Facebook group, letting everybody else know that we're out there. So it can have an effect. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it works.
It does. Do you want to make that impact?
Exactly. And for me, who doesn't want to see the county roads all tore to heck, send the signal. The guys that are doing it legal are the guys that are getting punished. I mean, seriously, the guys that are hauling, in weight, they're the guys that are getting punished because the road's getting tore up for them too.
And we appreciate those guys. We appreciate the guys that want to keep it legal out there each and every day, and more power to them.
Yep. All right, I'll ask you this one when we come back. It's riveting. It's absolutely riveting, this question. It involves Junior Brown. Let's get to the weather cave and find Too Tall Tom. Tom? 375948 1-800-880-5346. Captain Brian Niewind from the North Dakota Highway Patrol and Sergeant Jesse Grable from the Minnesota State Patrol are here. We're talking about going into all these summer activities. And Sergeant Grable, you must have seen a lot of boats out there this weekend.
There were, and there's only going to be more. I mean, it's that time of year. The weather's getting better. That's what we see in the Lakes Country, especially.
Yeah. So, there's always this whole thing of how you guys, coordinate or do anything with, in North Dakota, it would be Game and Fish. And, in Minnesota, I know that they're inspecting a lot for how you drain your boat, those type of things. Is there any partnership there at all?
No, that's usually taken care of by the DNR, and then a lot of times your local sheriff's office. I mean, they'll man some of the different what do you call them, public access, things like that. That's more for them. But when it comes to enforcement, I mean, the DNR, I mean, everybody's kind of a part of that Towards Zero Death enforcement, that initiative as far as what we're doing for education outreach when it comes to the dangerous things that we see on the roadways.
So, Captain Niewind, do you coordinate at all with, the game wardens out there, or is this only when they need help kind of a thing?
So our troopers have statewide jurisdiction. We can enforce game and fish laws, and we do that while we're out there working. If we see a violation, we will take enforcement action on that. We'll work in coordination with Game and Fish on their checkpoint locations that they'll have throughout the year, whether it's for hunting violations or it's the ANS violations. We will assist them at their checkpoint locations. We don't necessarily work in coordination with them every day, but there are, details that we'll do with them, and along with that we can enforce the Game and Fish laws.
Okay. Somebody says for the troopers in each state, I'm a passenger in a vehicle that gets pulled over for something the driver did. I have been asked for my ID. Can I tell the officer to take a flying kite?
Kind of depends on each circumstances, the overall reason for the stop, the investigation. So in some circumstances, the officer may not have a right to ask for identification. In certain circumstances, they may. I mean, let's say, for example, something very obvious, not wearing a seatbelt. Well, you would have to, you're in violation also. So it just kind of depends on each circumstance.
Okay.
The same thing in North Dakota. I think it's just kind of we're following the federal case law on this, whether it's in North Dakota Century Code, Minnesota laws. When we follow this, and it's the same thing. There's certain circumstances where you're going to have to provide it. Anytime you are a passenger in a vehicle and that vehicle is stopped, you are detained. You're not allowed to walk away. But whether or not you have to identify yourself is really going to depend upon the circumstances of the stop. What's the stop for and what's going on during that traffic stop?
So there's got to be some red flags, though, that come up that are like, wait a second, I need to find out why these two people are together. For example, why, and I'm not trying to use old and young or anything like that. I'm just saying that there's got to be some things that, okay, let me give you an example. So I'm sitting there and I'm a 70-year-old man and I've got a little kid in the back seat just screaming and hollering because they're not happy to be there. Would that be a red flag to say, what are you doing with the baby back there?
It would be. It would be a red flag for us, and we're going to investigate that. We'll probably remove the driver from that vehicle and start interviewing them about what's kind of the circumstances going on and try and get to the bottom of exactly what that traffic stop's all about.
Exactly. I mean, we start maybe with something, whether it's probable cause or a reasonable suspicion, and we go from there depending on training, experience, those things that just don't make sense. Sometimes we do have to ask the hard questions. That's part of what being law enforcement is all about.
And I think the public would want you to. I mean, I know they would.
Well, human trafficking is
for me. Yeah. I brought two of my grandkids home. They're both in booster seats in the back seat, and I thought, if a highway patrolman picked me up right here, they're going to say, "What's this old crippled up geezer doing with two little kids in the back seat?" Which isn't a bad question to ask. I don't think.
No, it's not. I mean, because like Sergeant Grable said, is we have human trafficking out there, and we're out there looking for that. That's part of our criminal interdiction efforts. Is not just trying to locate people that are transporting drugs, but it's people that are transporting humans across, our country. And that happens every day. It's happening through our areas, whether it's to our areas or away from our areas.
I know the answer to this one, or at least I think I do, but I want to make sure you get asked it anyway, Captain Niewind. It says, thanks for your service. Are your agencies aware or engaged in the Fargo drag racing issue? Thoughts or comments?
Thank you for the support. Yes, we are. So we are working in coordination with the Cass County Sheriff's Office, the West Fargo Police Department, and our agency on trying to address some of those drag racing and those speeding issues in town. And there'll be some upcoming details that we have not announced yet, but there'll be some upcoming details we'll be coordinating together to try and put a stop to some of that stuff that's going on around town.
Well, one of my staff members here that I work with, it goes by his place all the time. So he would thank you for whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I think for the Fargo Police Department, a lot of this is happening in Fargo. Is probably where the majority of some of these issues are, and they're very, very aware of where these locations are, and we will be targeting those locations. So just fair warning for those that are out there that are part of this. We will be out looking for you and addressing these concerns with the community.
Individual sends in, says, please thank the troopers for all they do, the 24/7, 365 that they work, and the family things that they miss trying to keep us safe. That's a good way to go into the next segment. So when we come back, those questions that you have for the troopers, 1-800-880-5346 or 35270. 948-1-800-880-5346. You call, you will get through, and you get a chance to visit with the troopers. A lot of questions going on out there. There's and of course, you can, I think I said text at 35270, the Eye Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. My guess is there's a lot of things that are going to come out of the machine shed now that might not be licensed currently. Is that safe to say, Captain?
Yeah, that's probably safe to say. Whether it's a motorcycle or trailer, even boats, right? Like I said, I don't know what the cycle is in Minnesota, but North Dakota, even boats probably, maybe some of them don't have their registration on them.
Mine did. I know that look. I checked that one. I did.
Right, but like I say, make sure you check the tires, the lights, the hookups, make sure you got all that stuff too.
Yeah, I'm sitting there and I've got on my desk right now, I've got the tabs for one of my rigs and the tabs for my motorcycle, and neither one of them are on there yet. I mean, they're paid. I just don't have them on because I haven't been around them yet.
Yeah, and all trailers in North Dakota expire in December. So, a lot of people aren't using trailers over the winter months and forget to put those tabs on.
The thing about some of these trailers is you don't get the notification. You got to go in to let them know. If
some of the trailers are that way, those utility trailers are that way. Yep. You will not get the notification. But if you have a full-size license on a trailer, you will get the notification from motor vehicle.
Right. Is that on the Minnesota side too?
Yeah, a lot of our smaller trailers have that lifetime license on there, so generally not an issue with the smaller ones.
Do we have that?
We do not.
I would happily pay that.
I believe for some of our larger trucking companies, they can get fleet plates for their trailers, which have I'm not sure what the expiration is on them, but it's not every year.
Okay. So, from that standpoint, though, it's seasonal. Everything's about to change. We're heading into lake country. You're going to see speedboats. You're going to see pontoons. They're going to be wider. I mean, your country has to get wild right about now.
It does, and then motorcycles too. It's finally warming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing motorcycles everywhere this past week. This with the temperatures changing, the rain finally stopping, people are getting out and they're getting excited to be out in this nice weather we're finally having.
There's no farmer in the world that's going to like what I say right now. But when you get a nice rain like the one I was talking about us having, all that crap goes off the roadways. When you're a motorcycle rider, you don't have all that sand that got put. You know what I mean? It's just
the roads are clean.
The roads are clean.
Yeah.
It's a good time for that. When is the time that you look for student drivers the most? When I was, growing up, Mr. Whelan had you the summer off, and that's when he taught you driving.
We do a lot of driver's ed classes in the summer months. The schools are putting them on, the communities are putting on driver's ed classes. That's the majority of the classes that we go speak to are in the summer months. Although we are doing educational efforts year round at different driver schools. There's a lot of drivers actual behind the wheel training going on. In North Dakota, you have to have at least 6 hours with an instructor. So a lot of that is going on in the summer because these schools are putting it on, but also there's a lot of commercial driver training programs where kids aren't as busy in the summer and they're doing a lot of driving in the summer.
Same.
It's the same.
Yep.
Quite a bit more then, right?
Yeah.
I try to, you can see it off in a distance. They do a way better job now of letting you know that it's there than what, we were in a car, and nobody knew that it was driver's ed car. We were in a car and Mr. Whelan had a brake on his side. That's all he had. He could hit the brake and stop you. But individual says, I'm coming to you from Montana. Sometimes when I travel across the country, I carry large amounts of cash and I've done nothing illegal, but I've been warned by law enforcement and the TSA that they can confiscate the cash and I may not get it back. Can you address this? Either one of you.
I guess TSA, that's, nothing that we get involved with. But.
No, but I think he meant.
Yeah, anytime you fly, they ask you if you're going to be carrying over $10,000 cash. And if you are, you have to declare that. It doesn't mean that somebody's going to take it from you. You just have to declare that. If you don't declare that, then, the TSA might take that money from you. When you're traveling across country, obviously, if you have large amounts of cash, just have some proof of where it came from or why you took it out or something like that, right? We encounter people with large amounts of cash all the time. They might be driving to Minnesota to go buy a boat. They're going to pay cash for it. Law enforcement will investigate if we figure out at some point in your traffic stop that you have a large amount of currency. We're going to try and investigate why you have that. People that are involved in criminal activity will transport large amounts of currency across our country. And there's times when that will be seized by law enforcement, but we have to have probable cause to seize that. So, if you're doing everything law-abiding, you should have no concerns with carrying a large amount of money.
Yeah, really the same thing. If it's tied in with criminal activity, then yeah, it's going to be part of that investigation.
How do you find it out? I mean, how do you find, I've been trained if I have a weapon in the vehicle and law enforcement comes up to just tell them. Say, and back in the case there, I got a shotgun or, got a 22 or something like that,
right.
I normally would carry around with me when I'm beating around, kind of a thing. But I doubt that I'd ever say, Sergeant Grable, I got about 10 grand stuck in the council here. I mean, I just don't see myself doing that.
Well, the thing is, that's maybe the difference between you, a law-abiding citizen, and someone involved in further criminal activity. So.
Well, there you go. But have you ever stopped anybody and found a large amount of cash?
Yes, we do. And there's times
so that sends up some red flags, drug dealer, that type
right.
of thing.
We might be doing a search of that vehicle based off of a consent search, a probable cause search, because we can smell some drugs, we can see something inside that vehicle, and we find a large amount of currency. So, there's times when we find currency, and there's a legitimate reason why the person has it. They go about their way, right? There's probably times when we stop people that have a large amount of currency and we don't find it because we're not searching that vehicle, right? So it really kind of depends upon the circumstances. And there's a lot of different tools we can do on scene, whether it's through our interviews and then some different programs that we can work through to figure out why this person maybe has the cash that they do.
This individual says, Joel, let the troopers know that commercial drivers, owner-operators can save anywhere from 6 cents to 10 cents a gallon by paying cash for the diesel fuel, and that's why I carry cash when I'm going over the road. So you must hear that too, I would guess.
Sure.
Yes.
Yep. All right. A couple other things when it seems to me that people are just getting into the routines of this season. There's going to be, I would guess, people driving that normally don't drive that size of a rig. Whether they're hauling seed out, you must see some of that, Sergeant Grable.
Oh, yeah, whether it's maybe some farm equipment or things like that, or even now you're starting to see more of the campers, the RVs, those types of things. And, and maybe they don't have a whole lot of experience. And, yeah, there could be a learning curve there.
Yeah, Class A motorhomes. It could be individuals that are pulling a fifth-wheel camper with a boat behind it. How often do we pull something with two trailers? So, there's a lot of different combinations of vehicles out there that people might only drive 4 or 5 times a year, and how comfortable can you get if you're only doing that many times a year?
What percentage of increase do you think there is on the highway versus when you started as a young man in the patrol with campers going down the road? 20, 30? Everywhere you go, that's all you see now is campers going down the road on a Thursday or Friday. Or
I would say probably 40 or more percent. It seems like in the summer there's a lot, right? And if you think about it too, there's a lot of campgrounds now that you just put a park model there, right? And people are going someplace that they have a camper too. I think there's just a lot more opportunity for people to get out and about, and there's a lot of campers out there, and we see a lot coming through our area as well, heading up into Canada.
Okay, well, if we're seeing it in North Dakota, you must really see it in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be hitting my 25th year in law enforcement, and definitely seen an increase over that time.
Yeah. To me, it's like, okay, how? Yeah, you used to play the Ford or Chevy game going down the interstate. Now it's how many campers can you see in this many miles?
And it's probably because you've seen like these resorts, right? There's less resorts out there, so people want an outlet, and now they have campers that can take campers places.
How about, North Dakota has, Minnesota has tougher cell phone laws than North Dakota. In Minnesota, has there been less cell phone use, hand use now because of those new laws?
We just wrapped up. April was National Distracted Driving Awareness, and we had a number of citations that were issued all over Minnesota. So people seem to be slipping in old bad habits, whatever it may be. So
it hasn't really deterred or stopped.
No, it gives law enforcement the ability to enforce them. That's what's nice, because people know it's not safe. And here's the thing we're seeing now. So now what they're doing, instead of holding the phone up by their face, they're just dropping it lower is what we're seeing. So it becomes a little, it was obvious before when they got the phone up in the face, but now you just see people staring directly down at their laps, and something's up.
How about in North Dakota? You still seeing people abuse it?
Yeah, it's a common issue that we have, and it's probably underreported when we talk about our crash statistics, because we just, in some of those cases, we're not doing a lot of investigative work to figure out whether they're using their cell phone or not. We're just taking people at their word a lot of times when we have these property damage crashes, that they were distracted by something else or not distracted at all.
So when you pull up to an intersection and you sit there and you're your front door even with the car next to you, and they're doing what a lot of people do at the red light. They're checking their phone, and then they turn up and they look and they see you. I mean, you must be able to pick up on a reaction from them. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell, and it's one of the difficult things we have in North Dakota is just the way our law is written. It's very difficult for us to enforce a texting while driving a violation because we have to know before we stop them that they were actually texting while driving.
Okay.
In Minnesota with the hands-free law, I mean, it's obviously a little easier in that sense, but at the same time, with what you said, Joel, I'm getting pretty good at reading lips.
Let's get to Jerry. Jerry, you're on News and Views.
Morning, Joel. Ask the troopers, has it ever been, if your wipers are on when it's raining, that the headlights should be on or supposed to be on or no?
Minnesota's, it's never been a law. It's kind of a rule of thumb, but really what the law states is that your headlights and taillights must be on any time that visibility is reduced to 500 feet or less. So again, with snow, rain, any type of thing, blowing dirt, smoke, whatever it may be, yeah, put the headlights on.
Yeah, in North Dakota, the law says 1,000 feet or less. So if the visibility is less than 1,000 feet for whatever reason, you have to have your lights on. So it could be raining out and you can see more than 1,000 feet. You don't necessarily need to have your lights on. I know a lot of the cars that are coming out now, these new vehicles, if you have your windshield wipers on, the lights come on automatically.
Let's head to the Weather Cave and find Too Tall Tom Szymanski and get our forecast from him. Tom? Graybo in the house from the Minnesota State Patrol, as is Captain Brian Newen from the North Dakota Highway Patrol. They're taking your calls. Terry, you're on with the troopers. Go ahead.
Yes, say I was going to be purchasing a brand new vehicle, and the front grille on the vehicle is very nice, and the license plate attaches right on the grille. And I'm wondering, do I really need to have the license plate on the front of the vehicle, or will I get pulled over for that specific reason?
Are you in Minnesota or North Dakota?
North Dakota.
North Dakota, we do have a law that requires a front and rear license plate on all passenger vehicles, so that will need to be mounted someplace on the front of that vehicle. If it has a location on the grill where you're supposed to put that, you can move that someplace else onto that front bumper area or someplace else in the front of that vehicle, but it has to be mounted on the extreme front of the vehicle horizontally.
Yeah, and Minnesota is the same thing. So again, it must be mounted solid and secure, so it's not swinging, swaying, anything like that. And front windshield does not meet that requirement. So people that put their license plates up in that front window does not meet the requirement.
You prop it up on the dash. It's no good.
Nope. It's no good.
Sorry about that, Jerry. I don't think he liked what you guys had to answer, but it's the way it is. Keith, you are on News and Views. Go ahead, Keith.
Yes, good morning. I'm a Minnesota resident, and I also have horses. And I was told years ago by a Minnesota trooper that I do not have to have a license plate on my two-horse trailer. And that doesn't make any sense to me. You have to license plate boat trailers and put license on all kinds of other trailers. Why don't I have to have a license plate on my horse trailer?
Right. When it comes to agriculture type things, anything involved with farm implements, things like that. So if it's strictly for your farm, your agriculture type use, then that is an exemption in Minnesota. That's why.
Oh, okay. Well, now I just learned something.
Yep. And if you
enjoy the day,
if you were to borrow that out to somebody that say they want to move some furniture, things like that, well, then that would be a violation of the law because it's for agriculture use only. You can't borrow it out to somebody.
Thanks for calling in, Keith. Let's get to Greg. Greg, you're on with the troopers.
Yes. Say I was wondering what the law in Minnesota is to have a receiver hitch on your car or pickup without a trailer present.
Yep, you are allowed to keep your receiver hitch in the rear part of your vehicle as long as it is not obstructing license plates. And most of them are drop-down receivers, so that's usually not an issue. But having been there, done that myself, just watch out when you're walking around the back of the vehicle. You might take out your shins there.
How about on the North Dakota side?
North Dakota's the same. You can keep it in the truck or the car that you have, SUV.
Okay, thanks, Greg. And it's become just the norm. I think people are just, you look at, okay, have you ever had one stolen from you?
I have not.
How about you?
No.
I've had one gone in all the years. One disappeared. And I didn't notice it. And the freaky thing about it was that morning I put it on because I was going to hook up to something here in Fargo and take it back. And then that mid-afternoon it was gone. So I know it was Abby.
She
I
smacked
need
her shin on it.
Yeah.
She smacked her shin. And
your rig out there, it takes a hitch, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it would go on my Equinox for sure.
No.
So, okay, you take, and I'm going to go back to the camper issue, you guys. A lot of the campers are pulling something now. A small vehicle, all of that. What's the rules?
So anytime a vehicle is pulling something, it's considered a trailer. So it has to be connected with, obviously a hitch, some sort of hitch, whether it's a fifth wheel, if it's a fifth wheel trailer, or a bumper hitch for a lot of these vehicles or other trailers. It also has to have safety chains. So with that hitch, it has to have at least 2 safety chains to keep it connected to the vehicle that's towing it. It has to have lights on the back of it. So it's got to have turn signals and brake lights on the back of it.
Okay. How about on the...
Yep, same in Minnesota. Now,
Minnesota
for
side?
folks that want to get into like triple combination, so you got your power unit, your pickup that you're pulling something with. If you're going to do a 3 combination, then that middle trailer must be of a fifth wheel, not a gooseneck, but an actual fifth wheel.
Okay.
And then the trailer behind that you're allowed to pull would have to be like a sports and recreation trailer for like jet skis, motorcycles, that type of thing.
Then what about the fourth one?
Fourth one, well, then you're going to get our attention.
Is it acceptable to present the car insurance card on the phone if requested by the patrol?
Yes.
Yes.
So you can use it. I mean, you get it on there. Just like my vaccine card when I was in California. There you go. I got it. It passed. When we come back, I'm just going to get some comments from the guys going into Memorial Day weekend. So stick around. On to the troopers a little bit longer than I normally do because we're going into Memorial Day weekend soon, and I'm not going to have them back in here before then. So Captain Brian Niewind and Sergeant Jesse Grable, one with the North Dakota Highway Patrol, the other with the Minnesota State Patrol, are still in the studio. The things that Captain Niewind you would want to tell people heading into Memorial Day weekend to look out for and do.
You know, the weather's warming up here. Things are getting nicer out there. And obviously the Memorial Day weekend is all about family and spending time with family and friends. And it's a celebration holiday, it seems like, for most people. It's the start of summer. And, you know, what does that entail? A lot of times it entails people traveling, and it entails people that are going out and having a good time. And some of them maybe imbibing just a little bit too much and getting behind the wheel. So, you know, we're going to have some extra patrols going on over the Memorial Day holiday. We have our Click It or Ticket overtime program going on. We'll be looking out for those occupant protection violations, making sure people are wearing their seatbelts. But also on top of that, we'll have individuals out working some alcohol overtime, looking for those violations where people are drinking too much, maybe even taking some drugs and getting behind the wheel and deciding to drive and putting themselves and everybody else in danger. We want to remove those people from the roadway. So we're going to have extra patrols. We have extra patrols going on right now, even throughout the month of May all the way into June.
How about Minnesota?
Same in Minnesota with, just the extra traffic now. We got extra patrols, extra enforcement, whether it's speed, impaired driving, whether it's alcohol, drugs, distracted driving. Going to definitely keep increasing our patrols on that. But with that being said, too, I mean, things can change for any of us pretty quickly here in the Red River Valley. And I like to think I'm an optimist, but I've still got the ice scraper, the snow brush in the vehicle. But I'll refer you to Too Tall on that for the weather and road.
He was talking about frost this morning on my drive in. I heard him talking about frost warnings for the end of the week, and you could almost hear the farmers who have been just dying to get in the field who were like, well, at least it's not up yet. Where it's going to freeze off.
Yeah.
Guys, how do you, because it's just the norm, and I'm not trying to compare us to California, but I was in California recently where marijuana is legal or ignored is probably the best way to put it because there's still federal law. But, I got into an Uber car, and it was clear that either he was or the person before him that was in that car was smoking a lot of pot. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Well, really, just like anything when it comes to when we're looking for impaired drivers, I mean, whether it's alcohol or drugs, I mean, you obviously sometimes the first giveaway is the odor, whether it's alcohol or marijuana, and then you start looking for the other clues, the other indicators. I mean, is this person showing signs of being impaired? So then you go about it and you run through the sobriety test. So that's kind of how it works for us on the law enforcement end.
You know, we have some specialized training. We have A-RIDE training. We have DREs within our organizations as well that will test individuals that are under the influence of drugs and tell you exactly what type of classification of drug the person is under the influence of. So we have, a lot of tools in our toolbox to be able to go out there and detect these people, but then also get successful prosecutions, because that's what it's about at the end of the day is, number one, we want to remove them from our roadways, but we also want to make sure that we are successfully prosecuting the individuals that are causing a danger to other people on the roads.
Is it a completely different look when somebody's hammered versus high?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's the way the body moves, the way it reacts. I mean, if it ain't right, it ain't right, I guess. They say if it walks like a duck and, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Same thing with impairment. It gets pretty obvious. And again, if it comes through what Captain Ewan said, the training, the experience, and just being able to recognize those clues and indicators.
I mean, telling somebody if they're under the influence of alcohol is pretty basic, pretty easy for law enforcement officers to recognize. Sometimes the drug impairment can be a little more difficult. There are certain classifications of drugs that mimic just like you are impaired by alcohol, right? But there's other ones that do not. So it takes a little just extra training, a little extra time, a little extra questioning, some different tests to figure out exactly, what this person might be under the influence of. So we're looking at pre-stop indicators. So how are they driving prior to them stopping? And then it's while we're on that traffic stop, we're listening to them, we're looking at them, we're looking around that car to see if they have any paraphernalia laying around. And then we're doing the test just to see exactly what we feel they're under the influence of.
You said at the beginning of our conversation today that you're short about 10 troopers. Is that because people don't want to be troopers? Why?
We're going through a hiring process right now. So normally every year we lose about 7 troopers is what our attrition rate is. Some people leave because the career's not for them anymore. We do lose some through our training process because they just can't, cut the mustard. We also have retirements every year. We're an organization that prides ourselves on getting people that want to stay for a career and then they retire from our agency. So, we're very lucky that way. We lose about 7 troopers a year. Right now, we're 10 short. We've had several retirements. We're an agency that we're going to have several retirements over the next few years. But we've also unfortunately had to fire a couple people here recently, which was in the media for some inappropriate behavior that they had off duty.
How about Minnesota? Are you holding your own staff-wise?
We are, but again, the same thing with retirements and things like that. So we're actually going through a hiring process right now. I believe that they're in the background process. But again, it's been put in a budget here, I believe, over the next couple of years that we have the money to hire to make sure we get those replacements for the troopers that have been retiring. So again, always in need of good men and women to want to do this job because we need you out there.
Are there more women getting into the patrol?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for what I've seen over the years and helping with some of the academies, it seems like there are. Yes.
How about North Dakota?
And we're making a push. We want to get more women in our ranks. There's a nationwide push. It's called 30 for 30, I believe, is the terms for it. But the goal is to get 30% of law enforcement in the female ranks in all law enforcement agencies across the United States. So we're making a push to try and hire more females. We're actually in a hiring process right now. There were several females that did apply through our process that we interviewed, and we just haven't made our hiring decisions yet. But we're looking for good men and women. It doesn't have to be a man to do this job. We have very capable female troopers out there that do the job better than a lot of the men in our agency. So, this is a career where you have to be able to go out and make decisions. You have to be able to confront people, right? You have to be able to see that kind of that gray area. Not everything's always black and white. You have to be able to communicate. If you can do those things, we can teach you the job. How
about, the things that go along with the job? And the one that in particular jumps out is just respect. You both could have jobs that pay you more. You're both young, talented men. But you do this because at some point it's what you want to do, and it becomes a calling. I mean, you're doing things that make a difference in people's lives. But being treated with respect while you're doing that, it would seem, would keep you in the force, in the uniform. Whereas, some of the people that have left law enforcement, to me, were like, people are jerks. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Have you seen some of that?
I think we're kind of insulated a little bit as a state patrol, like a Fargo Police Department, a Bismarck Police Department, Minneapolis Police Department. These larger agencies, they're dealing with the same problems day in and day out. They get to know people on a first name basis because it's just a constant problem with individuals. There's a lot of mental health problems that are going on in our communities, a lot of addiction issues that are going on in our communities. We see that roadside, but the majority of what we're doing is on our state's highways and byways, where we see a little bit of that, but we're not seeing the same people every day. And
it's not defining your life.
Exactly. It's not the same. You're not working the same shift area every day. So we have a little more diversity in our job where we'll be able to be more proactive, where some of these departments are more reactive.
How about Minnesota?
I think a lot of this is the same thing. I mean, it's, you wear a lot of different, we talk about the trooper hat, but at the same time in law enforcement, you're going to wear a lot of different hats as far as what you're responding to and reacting to certain situations. And it's very unique because every single traffic stop is different. Even though we may call something routine, it's really not routine until it's all said and done.
Yeah. Interesting. Hey, you guys be safe out there. I could sit here and start reading off, but we always get a ton of text messages from people saying that, they just want you to be safe and they appreciate what you do. So appreciate you coming here and giving them access to.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joel. You always support law enforcement, our agencies, and we appreciate the support from the public as well.
You bet. Anytime. That's one thing that I think that the 99% of people out there want done. They want law enforcement supported. And I think that we've got a really good track record in this region of that. 237-5948, 1-800-880-5346. When we come back, we're going to pay attention to what happened in Buffalo. But first, we're going to the Weather Cave and find Mr. Too Tall Tom. There are still farmers in northwestern North Dakota who are without power. So saying when they were without power is incorrect. Some of us are still without power. Okay, good. Glad you pointed that out. And I have to tell you this, I didn't know that. I thought the power was back on to everyone. I know they were still fixing a lot of lines. I saw that, but I assumed that it had been kind of rigged on the back way to be backfed. But okay, thank you. Thanks for telling me. I want to get to the phone lines and get to George. George, you're on News and Views.
Yeah, Joel, say, have you had a chance to drive up to the Newman Center or the Roars project up there?
I did. When this whole thing blew up, that was one of the first things I did, was I drove up, and then I spoke to one of the neighbors up there. I gave him a call because I had his number.
I tell you what, I built a number of different places my own, but Roars never, ever had an intention of putting 7 twin homes in there. He's got one spot left that's 100 feet by 100 feet. And he's going to put 7 townhomes in there? That's absolutely impossible.
Well,
I mean, something's really got to be done to this guy. He cost the diocese millions of dollars because of overruns. But he built his project at his cost and got it done. Why does he get by with this stuff?
Well, I don't think he is, George. I think that in fairness to, the Fargo City Commission and the mayor, I think they did a pretty good job from all different sides coming at him and making sure publicly he paid a price for this. Now, should they have been on it sooner is the big question, George.
Well, the question is, though, but he had the design, and he's poured concrete so much up there, there's absolutely no way on God's earth he could put 7. He couldn't even put 3 townhomes in there, let alone 7.
Let me ask you a political question with this, George. Do you think this hurts his daughter's chance of being mayor?
Well, I think it did, but the problem is, the guy needs to be fined millions of dollars, so he's done it to everybody. I know that there's articles in the paper about the diocese. Hey, people don't know, but he screwed them royally.
Yeah. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Okay. He didn't do what he said he was going to do. Here's the other thing that I started getting after Jim Roars was in here with me, and I made sure Jim was treated with respect as he should be, like any individual should be, and had a chance to say what he wanted to say, because Lord knows there was enough being said about him. So I don't apologize to anyone for how I treated Jim Roars. They were like, why were you so nice to him? Well, I think if you go back and you listen to that interview, go wherever you can hear podcasts, you're going to see it, or hear it, I should say. And we asked him what needed to be asked. Now, that being said, I think that when it comes to the culture of certain people involved in a political setting, and by this I mean the fact that Jim Roars is a state senator. He is a man that can walk around with the big gold band and diamond ring on, right? He's got a couple bucks. Now, probably got there himself. So I never criticized somebody who made it, but the guy isn't exactly driving up with Carhartts on, right? He's paying somebody else to do that. So the question becomes, how do you monitor it? How do you gauge it? How do you give the tax breaks that go along with it? Commissioner Pepcorn, when he took him to the woodshed that night at the Fargo City Commission meeting, to me was well within his rights to do it, maybe did it in way too harsh of a way. And I'm wondering if Dave wouldn't feel that same way afterwards, like I shouldn't have cussed, shouldn't have did this, shouldn't have done that, but he got up in his grill. Now, understand, and I said this the next day, that this was in large part also about politics, because his daughter wants to be mayor of the city of Fargo. I have no doubt that Dave Pepcorn doesn't want her to be mayor of the city of Fargo. And I think that Commissioner Pepcorn would like it if Mayor Mahoney continued to be mayor of Fargo. Now, understand, Mayor Mahoney has ties and roots in the Democratic Party and Pepcorn in the Republican Party. So this isn't a party thing as much as what I think it's an opportunity thing. If Mahoney wins, who knows? 2-3 years he resigns, the deputy mayor. There's all kinds of things that can happen here. But aside from all of that, Jim Roars and Roars Construction deserved the butt whooping. They did. They deserved to get chewed out. The previous caller, George, pointed it out. They got a mess. They didn't do what they say they're gonna do. And don't tell me costs go up, because Jim Roars has a history of making sure his subcontractors live with their bid, whether costs go up or not. And so he has a real history when it comes to subcontractors. The reason I know is my phone blew up after that. So not a lot of forgiveness there either. All right, heading to Buffalo discussion right after this. About Peyton Gendron, he is the murderer. He is the individual that committed the hate crimes in Buffalo. This is a man that drove over 200, and he's a man. He's 18 years old. He's responsible for his actions at 18 years old. This is a man who drove over 200 miles to kill people, and he wanted them to be black. Now, keep that in mind. This is a young white man that drove over 200 miles to go to a shopping center, Tops Friendly Market, and shoot people and kill people. And that was his intention. And there's a thing going on, and I want you to keep this in mind, called replacement theory. And I'm sure many of you have heard a lot about that, over the last weekend, few days here. But it's been going on for a while now. For those people that haven't been kind of reading between the lines, that whole subculture of how to get people fired up, and the whole intent of replacement theory is to divide politically. And here's what they're trying to do, and they're successful at it. I mean, this in Buffalo was a perfect indicator that they're successful, not in the fact that they wanted somebody to go kill somebody. That isn't my point. My point is they wanted to dredge up so much hate and make people believe that one political party is trying to indoctrinate into our society more blacks, more Latinos, more Hispanics, more anything they can so they can gain politically. And so there are individuals who believe that. They are rock solid. They believe that, and they preach it on a daily basis because they've found it to be it's lucrative. You can raise money doing this. You can certainly raise ire doing this. You can get passion out in doing this. And so if you continue to beat that drum, and you 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 tell people that their lot in life is because of those individuals, and you tell people that your neighborhood is going to leave because of those people, and you tell people that they're going to lose their job because of those people, or they're going to lose their country because of those people, if you continue to do that, I mean, if you continue to just pound and pound and pound that drum, you're going to find more of the Peyton Gendrons. You're going to find them feel more empowered, more nervous, more they've got political sport out there. Now, let me ask you this, because there's 10 people dead. And so for those of you that are after guns now, that's what you woke up and it was the gun that did this, right? Well, it was the individual that pulled the trigger on the gun that did this. So count me in amongst some of that. But here's where I've got a issue that I want to just bring up. The guy shouldn't have had a gun. He shouldn't have been able to have a Second Amendment right. You know why? Because he had already shown who he was. He had been investigated. He had shown who he was. There were previous threats that led to mental health issues, that led to discussions like that. And his gun had been illegally modified. I mean, what we're going to end up doing is having a huge conversation on guns again, when what we should focus on is, when we talk about guns, ladies and gentlemen, we should talk about the fact that he shouldn't have had a right to have one, and that there were all kinds of indicators that he shouldn't have. Now, how do you stop him from getting one? That's been part of the argument for a long time. Abby Miller doesn't own a gun. She doesn't. But you know how long it would take her to get a gun? If she wanted a gun by noon, she could have a gun. And I'm not talking about going down to the Outdoorsman or Shields and buying a gun. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is she walked around this building and said, hey, anybody borrow me a 12 gauge? She would get one borrowed to her by 5 o'clock today. She'd have a box of shells and a 12 gauge. I mean, she would. That's who and what we are as a nation. Now, is that a bad thing? No. It happens all the time. But my point is, we have access to guns. And so let's just acknowledge that. And instead of saying, okay, today in America, we're going to take care of it. We're going to get rid of all the guns. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. So work within what you can do. And what you can do is you can find individuals like this who are making threats like this, who are posting on social media, and you can do what you can do to make sure he doesn't have a gun. You can do what you can do to make sure that he doesn't have ammo, that he's being checked to make sure he doesn't have it, because he's earned that right. He's earned the right to not have a gun. Now, there's something else we can do, ladies and gentlemen, and this is equally or more important. We can acknowledge the fact that this whole replacement theory that people are having out there is nothing but a bunch of racism. Because that's what it is. It's racism. You don't like it when I say that. Oh, he's accusing me of being racist. You know what? It is. It is. It's racist. And the reason it's racist is because it sells, because it plays, because all you got to do is say they're taking your job. Let's build a wall. Let's do all of the things that we can do in code. Tucker Carlson is getting taken to the woodshed today by the public because he deserves it. He has got his popularity as the number one cable host, right? He is the number one cable TV news host. And the reason? Because he connects with a certain segment of society. He says what they believe, and he makes it so that it's okay to believe it. This started with Rush Limbaugh. You take a man with an incredible amount of talent, which Rush Limbaugh had, with a platform and a medium that he could use to take that talent to all new levels, and then you give him the audience that wanted to believe it in the beginning. They want to believe it. That's got to be the reason, right? It's their fault. It's not my fault. It's their fault. I mean, that's what's driving the bus here. In no way, shape, or form is this my fault, my lot in life. It's got to be the Hispanics' fault. Not only that, but look, a lot of times when they talk, they're not even speaking English. You know, I mean, it's that philosophy. And if you don't believe me, where we live, there isn't a lot of people with a lot of different cultures, right? I mean, there isn't. Wherever you go, you're not going to see a whole lot of black men and women. You're not going to see a whole lot of Hispanic men and women unless you go to some workplaces where they're desperately needed. Then you're going to see them. I would encourage you under this whole subculture of we don't like illegal immigrants. We don't want these people here. They're I could start rattling off the names, but go to places where without them, they would not even be operating. You know, and I don't care if I'm singling out this industry. It is so prevalent. Go to one of these big dairies. Go to one of them and see who does the work. See who does the hard work there. Look at the Hispanic community that's there. Look at this whole, culture of, hey, there's another one going up. Apparently, I found out yesterday by Manoman. Have you heard of any of that? But it's okay there because we need them. Wink, wink, nod, nod. They can live. Do you got them in the dorm? They don't go to town, right? I mean, it's okay. We don't got to be around them. We just need them to work. That's all we want. We don't want them to have a church. We don't want them to be in the desk next to our kids in school. We don't want their whole family here. If they just come up here and work and ship money back home, that's the best case scenario for us. That's the best, right? If you don't believe this, then ask yourself this big question. Has it become okay for this generation of adults to use the N-word? Has it? Because I will tell you this, if after the 60s, and I mean it, life changed in America in the 60s. If after the 60s, you were the guy in the VFW hall or the American Legion calling every black man a N, right? You were not the norm, and it was not allowed. It wasn't. You got the look from everybody like, what are you doing? You know, as a country, we grew out of this. You know, we're better. We always knew it was there. We always knew that subculture was there of people that hated blacks, hated Hispanics, hated people of color. We always knew it was there, but they weren't empowered enough to where they could just wear it on their sleeve and spew it while they were in public with individuals without getting taken to the woodshed on it. But now they can. Now it's as though it's allowable. Now, no one just looks at them and says, hey, if you're going to talk that way, just get away from me. Nobody does that. Because there's gotten to be so many of them that came out of the woodwork that it's almost as though it's not worth the fight. That you're not going to change them anyway. And right about the time that you challenge them on it, they're going to bring up something as ridiculous as replacement theory. They're going to talk about how they're doing this and doing that, and they've got an audience for it now, and they've got leadership on it. It's okay to be a racist and make racist behind the scenes, underlying current comments. It's okay to do it. It's okay to do it because you know what? The boss of this country did it. And he did. He did. Donald Trump did that to Barack Obama. Donald Trump is part of the evil of what's going on here. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself this then. If he came out as strongly as what you possibly can, that saying the replacement theory is wrong, the way you're treating black people is wrong, and I won't stand for it, and I won't condone it. If he came out and gave one of his firebred speeches and actually took those individuals who feel empowered by him to be that type of person, and he came out as their leader, which he is, they idolize this man, and he came out and said, knock it off. Knock it off. Instead of just soft pedaling it, well, we don't support that. Nobody should do that. Instead of come out and be the leader that God allowed you to be with the talent he gave you. Don't be Tucker Carlson. Don't use your platform to go ahead and spew hate and empower those who hate. Come out and call them out. And you might make a difference, and people might be alive today because of it. 237-5948, 1-800-880-5346. You can text me at 35270. Let's get to the Weather Cave and visit with Too Tall Tom. Messages. One says Hitler did exactly the same thing with Jews and got a large percentage of people to hate them with no reason other than he said so. Another one, with you 100%. Thank you, Joel, for saying it. Number one, this is coming through the churches as well. They are telling young ladies they don't have the right to choose not to have children. I've seen it from someone in Kansas, and I've heard it in the newspaper through a columnist in the Forum. All very white Christian. Another one, legal immigrants are welcome. Another one, you talk about racism. Where are all you Dems that leave Four Winds mascot as the Indians? There are plenty of white people that go to school there. Answer that, hypocrite. Another one, $20 at Menards and you've got yourself a working gun. Another one, Abby and Joel, ask the people that want guns, don't take my guns away. However, those are the same people that tell us a woman cannot have an abortion. Another one, Joel, it's sad to see and hear about the shootings in these large cities, but there are in liberal Democratic-run states like California and New York, and most of the protesters 2 years ago were also in Democratic-run cities. Let me ask you this. So you're blaming the city, right? This guy came 200 miles to that city, to a black community, to a black supermarket, and you're blaming the city. That I don't know how you get to there. I don't know how you get to where it and so I suppose your argument is, well, the city has tough gun laws. One of the individuals that their family is going to have a funeral was a man with a gun, a former law enforcement officer. And that law enforcement officer was working security at the building, and he went to where the individual was killing folks, tried to take him out, and got taken out himself. The guy that was doing the shooting was wearing, I mean, we can talk about, the vests, we can talk about all that. The advantage goes to the individual that decides he's going to commit this crime. What I'm trying to get at, ladies and gentlemen, is they show who they are on social media. If I'm going to take away guns, I'm going to take away from them. I'm going to go to leadership in this country, and I'm going to tell them to not, Tucker Carlson, make it okay to hate people of color. And there is one person that can make the biggest difference, one. And he was the 45th president of the United States. Good riding with you, folks.